Now, regarding democracy, in a paper titled Testing Theories of American Politics, Elites, Interest Groups, and Average Citizens, this was published last month, and Martin Gillen's a Princeton professor and Benjamin Page, a professor at Northwestern, they looked at the U.S. political system, and their conclusion was that economic elites and organized groups representing business interests have substantial independent impacts on U.S. government policy, while mass-based interest groups and average citizens have little or no independent influence. Now, does that conclusion surprise you at all?
No. It would have 30 years ago, 40 years ago, but not now. It's absolutely true. I mean, I witness it, and I've written about it so many times. And I'm very glad to have all of my columns for the last 10 or 20 years confirmed by these two scholars. It's not at all surprising. The powerful groups are the ones with the money and the ability to align themselves with U.S. foreign policy. For example, Wall Street is a great looting mechanism. The military-security complex, the agro-business, Monsanto, all those people, the oil, timber, and mining, the extractive industries, and of course the Israel lobby itself. These are the powerful interest groups that essentially determine the domestic and foreign economic policy. And the two scholars that you named, they made the point very strongly that community interest groups and citizens have zero input into the formation of policy. This has been confirmed in other ways. Aaron, recently a test was made. 2 letters were sent out to congressional offices, and one asked for a meeting with a representative with a collection of donors, and the other asked for a meeting with a collection of community representatives. Well, the first letter got the responses. They were all willing to meet with donors, but they weren't very interested to meet with the community interest groups from their constituency.
Well, I mean, maybe the trick is to say that you're going to be a donor, get them in the room, and, you know, give them couple cents. It's the way you're going to get some face time. Now, I want to ask you, speaking of special interests, former U.S. Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner is out with a new book called Stress Test. Everyone's talking about it this week. And it's about his tumultuous time in office dealing with the U.S. banking system's near collapse. Now, he is quoted saying, "I would say that there's lots of messiness and unpleasantness and awkwardness and a lot of unjust collateral beneficiaries of our rescue." However, Geithner believes his actions during the crisis have been vindicated by the passage of time. What do you make of this?
It's self-apologetics. There was no reason not to let these 4 banks fail, except that the Treasury and the Federal Reserve and the regulatory agencies were being run by the former executives of the banks. That's the only reason they weren't allowed to fail. And they obviously should have failed. It would have been far cheaper on the taxpayer. It would not have disrupted the international monetary system nearly as much as 4 or 5 or however many years it's been of quantitative easing, you know, creating as many as $1 trillion new dollars a year. The rigged bond market, the rigged stock market, the rigged gold market, none of these things would have been necessary if they had just let the banks fail. And it wouldn't have been a very big decline in affecting ordinary people. It was all of those derivatives, bets that the banks had with one another, that would have been the casualty. It would have hurt a few people's reputation and wiped out the wealth of the shareholders in those big banks. But that would have been the extent of the damage. So they should have failed, and I think Geithner knows that, but he was part of the inside crowd, and you can't really turn on your own, you see.
You really think it's that simple, that these people didn't want their former colleagues and buddies to go out of business?
Well, they were themselves the former executives that ran the banks. So, you know, how many people stand up and damn themselves? Occasionally,
Very few.
Somebody. Occasionally, not very often.
Don't see it often. Now, I want to ask you, when it comes to special interests, there's the voting public as well. And take the auto bailouts, for example. Now, the bailouts of Chrysler and GM cost U.S. taxpayers a lot of money. But what about all the manufacturing jobs the bailouts saved? What about those?
Well, we don't know that it did save them, but let's assume it did. What interests me is all the jobs lost to offshoring. And we now have this report that from the after college 24 Career Insight. We've just had this report, and what the report is that 83% of college students right now, as of April, don't have a job lined up for the May graduation. 83% of the current graduates from American colleges and universities as of April have no jobs for their May graduation. Now, when I was going through college, this was impossible. Everybody had 2 or 3 job offers.
Now, what about in 2006, though? What were the job offers then? I think that might be a a fair comparison to see what it was before the crisis opposed to now. How many?
I don't have that information here. That was still part of the boom for the unwary, because the decline didn't begin, I think, until December of 2007, and it showed up very strongly in 2008. So probably more, but the offshoring has been really strong in the 21st century. So it was already eroding the ability of people to find work. And not just the offshoring, because what the corporations do, they then claim that there's a shortage of qualified people, and so they need H-1B visas to bring in foreign workers because they can hire them a lot cheaper. And the workers are essentially like indentured servants, and they can't really offer any kind of resistance to work conditions and pay. So between the foreign workers that are brought in on work visas and the offshoring of jobs, the situation for American university graduates has been declining very rapidly year by year. And the cost.
That was economist and former Assistant Treasury Secretary, Dr. Paul Craig Roberts.